Okay, good morning. Mara, I think we can start now.
Great. Thank you, Cindy, and thank you all for joining us today for this interactive webinar on the New York Forward Loan Fund opportunity. I'm Mara Manis, the Executive Director of NYSCA, the New York State Council on the Arts. I'm joined here today by our colleagues at Empire State Development, also known as ESD, and they'll be sharing detailed information on the loan fund eligibility, the application and approval process, and more. We are grateful for Governor Cuomo's phenomenal leadership during these unprecedented times, as well as his recognition of the critical role that arts play in the health of our state. We also recognize that every person joining us today is experiencing the immense challenges of this pandemic in different ways. There's no denying the profound impact it's had on our sector, especially as the arts constitute such a crucial part of the state's economy and vitality. While the road to recovery could be a long one, there's light on the horizon. The NYSCA team is dedicated to providing our grantees and our arts sector with information on the many resources and funds that are being developed to support you during this time. And NYSCA continues to work collaboratively with other NYS agencies on learning opportunities, and today's webinar is just one example. This loan fund is operated by ESD and not NYSCA, and we believe that our grantees and the field will find this informational session beneficial as we all plan for the months ahead. Please know that there will be a dedicated Q&A period at the end, and you can submit your questions through the chat feature. Additionally, the ESD team has generously made themselves available to provide cultural grantees with additional application support beyond the seminar. Please know that today's webinar will be recorded and will be posted on the NYSCA, on our website under the NYSCA Presents page. I want to express our immense appreciation to Beverly Bobb, Senior Director of the Division for Small Business, Cindy Shannon, Economic Development Specialist, Morgan Clark, ESD Project Associate, and Brian Gursky, Vice President of Strategy and Innovation from True Fund Financial Services, for pulling this webinar together, together for all of us today. Now I'll turn this back over to Cindy, and thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mara. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cindy Shannon. I'm with Empire State Development. We have two great speakers today. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. So everyone is muted. As Mara mentioned, there'll be time for questions after the presentations. You can submit the questions now through the chat feature during the webinar. And at the end, my colleague Morgan Clark will read the questions and the speakers will address them accordingly. So our speakers today are Beverly Bobb and Brian Gursky. Our first speaker will be Beverly. Beverly is the Senior Director of Capital Access at Empire State Development, which is New York State's lead economic development agency. She's based in our New York City office. And for today's presentation, Beverly will provide a general overview of the New York Loan Fund, the pre-application process, so that you'll know how to apply and access this program. And then Brian Gursky of True Fund will discuss the application process in more detail, and he'll provide tips on submitting the application and the required documentation. Brian is the Vice President for Strategy and Innovation at True Fund Financial Services, which is a not-for-profit U.S. Treasury certified community development financial institution, otherwise known as a CDFI. They're based in New York City, and they're one of our 5 participating lenders in this loan fund. In his presentation, Brian will discuss the program from the lender's perspective, and he'll overview the requirements to qualify and the loan application process so that you'll be prepared to benefit from this resource. Again, our first speaker will be Beverly, and then she'll turn over the webinar to Brian. And without further ado, good morning, Beverly.
Hi, Cindy. Good morning. Thank you for that great introduction. Mara, I just want to say thank you for reaching out to us and inviting us to speak to your grantees about the New York Forward Loan Fund. We really appreciate your support in helping us get the word out about this great resource. So, you know, we're really excited to speak with everyone today, so I'll just get started. The New York Forward Loan Fund was announced by Governor Cuomo on May 22nd. So just to give you a snapshot of what the program is about, it is a new economic recovery loan program aimed at supporting New York State small businesses as they reopen after the COVID-19 outbreak in New York on pause. The working capital loans of up to $100,000 are timed to support organizations as they reopen and proceed to have upfront expenses to comply with guidelines under the New York Forward Plan. Nonprofits who did not receive a paycheck protection loan of greater than $50,000 or an EIDL grant of up to $10,000 are eligible to receive assistance under this program. The loans are not forgivable in whole or in part. Next slide, please. Cindy? Oh, thanks. Okay, so what we have here is if you're interested in applying, the first thing we have to do is begin the pre-application process. So we ask you to visit our website to start that whole process. It's www.nyloanfund.com. Once you visit the website, on the right-hand side, we have a snapshot of what the actual page looks like. The page will provide you a program overview. There's FAQs, and of course, there's a button down below to start the pre-application process. So we'll just, if you have any questions, we do have an email address. You can email us with your questions, and that address is nyloanfund@esd.ny.gov. I'll mention that later on in the presentation again. Back to the program. This is not a first-come, first-served loan program. Applications will be reviewed on a rolling basis. There are 5 CDFI lenders that are accepting applications. The application portal will help you choose the best lender for your industry and area. For the purposes of this audience, there are 2 CDFIs that are accepting applications from nonprofits. That will be NDC, National Development Council, and of course, True Fund. We have Brian on the phone. He will speak to the process later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. So going into the nonprofit process, again, the loans of up to $100,000, it's a 5-year term. Interest rates are 2%. The first year is interest only, payments paid monthly. The remaining 4 years, interest plus principal. Nonprofits can apply for a loan in the amount of $100,000 or up to 100% of their average monthly expenses for any 3-month period in 2019 or the first quarter of 2020. So just to add a little narrative to any 3-month period in 2019, we drafted it this way just so if you have a seasonal business and if you tend to generate more revenue towards the summer months or even in the winter months, you can carve out that 3-month period to determine what your estimated loan amount would be. That's why we have any 3-month period in 2019. Next slide, please. The proceeds, potential borrowers can use funds to pay for inventory, pay bills, buy personal protection equipment, payroll expenses, pay to retrofit your space, to apply with social distancing guidelines, operating or emergency maintenance, pay rent. Refinancing of an existing loan is not permitted under this program. The loan applicant will be required to detail anticipated use of funds when they're applying. There are no application fees, but there is a late fee for missed payments. There's no collateral required. The borrower may repay the loan early, and there's no penalty for that. Next slide, please. To be eligible for the New York Forward Loan Fund, a nonprofit must meet the following criteria. It must be organized as a 501c3 or a faith-based organization. The funds cannot be used to support religious worship or activity. You must employ 20 or fewer full-time equivalent employees. Please note you can have 2 part-time employees, which are equal to 1 full-time. Provide direct services to New Yorkers. For the purpose of this audience, examples of direct services would be art education, after-school programs, arts fellowship, creative aging services for seniors, community and public art projects, food banks, soup kitchens, museum programming. That's just a brief example of some of the categories of direct service for this audience. You must have an annual operating budget of less than $3 million per year. And I talked about the SBA requirement of if you receive SBA greater than $50,000, then you won't be able to get this to participate in this program. If you receive the EIDL loan, then you wouldn't be able to participate. If you receive the grant of up to $10,000, then you would be able to participate. You've suffered an economic hardship as a result of the COVID-19 related social distancing policies, and you've operated in the state of New York for at least a year from the date of the application. Next slide, please. All right, so the documentation that will be required when you are submitting your application, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly. I know Brian will also discuss this when it's his turn to speak. Once you've submitted your pre-application, you've been matched with a lender, you received an invitation to apply. These are some of the items that will be included in your application. So your most recent audited or reviewed financial statements as applicable, or the most recent internal financial statements if available, most recent filed IRS Form 990, evidence of legal formation of nonprofit entity, articles of incorporation and or your bylaws, executed attestation form that will be provided to you by the lender. The attestation form basically states that you've met the criteria for the program, you didn't receive an EIDL loan, and if you receive PPP with less than 50,000, so that's basically what the attestation form is. Information from the nonprofit executive team member that will be signing the application, nonprofit board approval and resolution, and a brief description of the COVID-19 impact on the jobs and revenue. Your lender will work with you to collect this documentation when they're trying to finalize your application. So we'll move on to the next slide. So we just spent some time talking about the program, the criteria, what's needed to fill out an application. I want to focus on the pre-application process, just so we kind of understand what the steps are. There's the pre-application process where you answer a series of 16 questions, which I will go over now. Once you've completed those 16 questions, you hit submit. You'll be matched based on your responses. You will be matched with a lender. You'll be able to select the lender, and that lender will send you an invitation to apply, and then you can complete your application. But for now, I know it's a lot of information. I just want to focus on the pre-application process, which can be found, the pre-application, which is available online, can be found at www.nyloanfund.com. So the first question, how much do you want to borrow? We talked about the loan requirements and the amount that you're able to borrow. Once again, it's $100,000 or up to 100% of your average monthly expenses in any 3-month period from 2019 or first quarter of 2020. So you enter in that amount. Next question. How do you plan on using the loan? I said before, this is a working capital loan, so we suggest that you select working capital. If you are interested in refinancing existing debt, unfortunately, this will not be the program for you because it's not an allowable use of funds for the program. So working capital would be your best bet. Next slide, please. How quickly do you need the financing by? There are 4 options there. Select which one applies. We do understand that in certain cases, or in most cases, the funding may be needed relatively urgent. So all applications are assessed on a case-by-case basis. There's a target of 2 to 3 weeks for a turnaround time for a loan application to closing. That's again, Brian could probably speak to that time frame a little better, but when we say the 2 to 3 weeks, that's based on the borrower providing all of the applications that are required to submit an application. We've had instances where folks started the application process, they're supposed to provide their articles of incorporation and they weren't able to find it, so that kind of delayed the process. So the quicker you can get the documents to the lender, the quicker the lender could turn around and have the funds dispersed to you. So next question, please. So tell us a little bit about your business. For this question, question number 4, you'll provide the name of the business, type, industry, and of course your time in business. As I stated before, the applicant must be in operation for at least 1 year from the date of the application. Next question. Where is your business located? Applicants must have a valid address in the state of New York. So you're just entering your business address. Next question. How should we reach you? Please put down for nonprofit, please include the contact information for the member of the executive team that's actually preparing the application. And that person should definitely monitor their emails just to see if they're receiving some sort of follow-up details from the lender. Next question. What is your total revenue? For nonprofits, please use your annual operating budget, and again, it cannot exceed $3 million. Just enter the figure that applies to you. Next slide. Did you earn a profit last year? Yes or no? Next one. What was your annual net profit last year? Just enter in the estimated or the approximate value in that box that's available. Next slide. Question 10, you'll provide detail on the amount of full-time equivalent employees that you have. Again, you must have 20 or fewer full-time employees, and 2 part-time employees count as 1. Just want to keep putting that out there. The next question that's listed under Section 10 is prior bankruptcies. I will not disqualify you, but it is a question that's listed there. Question 11, do you have collateral? Collateral is not required, but it is a question that is asked. So if you do have collateral, please check all that applies. Next question. How much revenue do you expect to make this year? Select the figures that apply. Relatively simple. The next question, 13. Do you have a business plan? Yes or no? A business plan is not required, but if you have one, that'll definitely give the lender more information about your business, about your organization. So it would be an added benefit if you did, but again, it's not required. Question 14. So question 14, is your business owned by women, people of color, veterans, and or LGBTQ identifying people? For nonprofits, you're answering on behalf of your executive team. It's a yes/no question. So if you answer no, you move on to question 16. If you answer yes, question 15, you'll be selecting all that applies. So moving on to question 16, which is the last question, you'll include your credit score information. And then once you're done with that, you just hit that button there that says done on the bottom, and it will bring you to this screen. I know I talked about you'll be matched with a lender. So this is a snapshot of what that actual screen looks like based on the information that you've provided. These are the lenders that you will be able to work with. But I just want to keep in mind, once again, for the purpose of this audience, for nonprofits, there are only 2 lenders that you're working with, which is NDC and True Fund. So you can select Connect. Next slide, please. And you're hitting connect, letting the lender know that you're interested in proceeding with them. The lender will then send you an invitation to apply. We ask that, again, you check your spam filter, monitor your email, because you will get an email from the lender that will give you, again, an invitation to apply. This is a snapshot of what that actual page looks like. And next slide, please. So, so here is what your estimated monthly payments would look like depending on the loan size and also depending on the interest. As we said before, the interest rates for nonprofits are 2%. For small businesses and small landlords, they're at 3%. So, just provided a little breakdown of what that would look like. Next slide, please. We work with several resource partners here at Empire State Development, and they're here to offer assistance to the businesses and the organizations as they fill out their application. We have the Small Business Development Centers, and there's a link here we can click to. There's a Small Business Development Center in every region of New York. There are over, I think, 24 of them, so they're ready, willing, and able to assist you any way possible with your application. We also have the Entrepreneurial Assistance Centers that can also assist you as well, and they're also located throughout the region of the state. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have an email address that's dedicated just to your one-off questions. If you don't need the full support of our resource partner, if you just have a simple question about the program or about the presentation, and you just need it answered right away, please feel free to just email us at nyloanfund@esd.ny.gov. Next slide, please. So now I will, that concludes my portion of the discussion. I will definitely turn it over to Brian, and he will speak to the program from the lender standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beverly. This is Brian Gursky. I'm with True Fund Financial Services, as previously mentioned, and I want to say thank you very much to the New York Council of the Arts for the invitation to share this information with you today. True Fund is indeed one of the 5 participating CDFI lenders for the New York Forward Loan Fund, as Beverly had mentioned. And we are very excited to be a part of that process and value our partnership with the ESD tremendously. All 5 lenders are following the same protocols, the same guidelines for this program. However, as Beverly mentioned, only 2 of the lenders are going to be lending the New York Forward Loan Program to nonprofits, and that is True Fund and the National Development Council. And you may get, or NDC, as you may see it in your options. And so you will be presented with those 2 options at the end of the application process. So what I'm going to represent here today really is the perspective of the lender, not so much anything too idiosyncratic to True Fund, although I will say that we are, of course, very happy to work with you and serve you. But the way that we look at the New York Forward Loan does follow the general guidelines of the program. And so there's not too much variation between how lenders evaluate your application. Very quickly about True Fund, we are based in New York City, but we are working across the state of New York for the New York Forward Loan Fund. So whether you are in various regions across the state, we are looking forward to supporting your nonprofit. True Fund's mission, as many CDFIs do have, we focus on serving those who cannot qualify for mainstream funders, and we do have a particular focus disparities and ensure an inclusive and equitable society. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the things I'm going to emphasize, as I had mentioned here, really are from a lender's perspective. And one of the things I want to open up with today is that as a lender who works directly with the business community and nonprofits as well, we are certainly very aware of the challenges that the business community is going through. We and nonprofit organizations, as revenues have been tremendously impacted, and in many cases costs have increased as social distancing guidelines, et cetera, have been put in place, and you're trying to adapt to remote ways of working. And as Mara had indicated at the beginning, each nonprofit is having its own experience with this too. But in a normal circumstance, in more normal times, a nonprofit or a business would be applying for a loan out of opportunity, out of pursuing growth or pursuing expansion. And in that case, many applicants would have a lot of their documents together and ready to go. But this global pandemic caught the business community and nonprofit community flat-footed. And so this is a best efforts approach, I want to say, for as much as Beverly was carefully outlining the specific documents that required. TrueFund as a lender and the lenders involved in this program are really trying to do the best with the information that we can obtain from you. So having said that, the documents that are required for this loan process are as follows. We really have streamlined our process, all lenders in this program, to make this as obtainable as possible. And so first and foremost, also as Beverly had requested, that we do want to see your most recent 990, the tax disclosure form that nonprofits are to provide. And so if you do not have a 990 for 2019, for example, we will take internally prepared financial statements. I'm sure many of those on the call have already been doing some translation of business speak into nonprofit speak. For example, when you say an income statement, nonprofits prepare a statement of activities, or when you have a balance sheet in business, you may have a statement of financial position. A tax return for a business for a nonprofit is a 990, but we will work with your internally prepared financial statements. We do require 2019 to be complete and accurate and to be detailed so that we can understand your revenues, understand your expenses, and it'll allow our organization to determine your eligibility to qualify and apply for a New York forward loan. Next thing is 2020 year-to-date financial statements. So income statement or statement of activities in particular. Not all organizations will have this, and we understand that. If you do have it, we do want to see it. It'll help us understand where you are. It'll help us to understand what your business or your nonprofit was like in the first of this year, January to March. The next item here is we want to see the legal formation documents for your nonprofit, and we are also required to see your articles and bylaws. And so hopefully these are things that you have readily at hand that you can share with your lender as a part of our verification of the entity process. The next thing that's listed here is a letter from your board, the board of your nonprofit, that is authorizing, one, your nonprofit to apply for the New York Forward loan. And secondly, it's authorizing a particular individual in your nonprofit to pursue that loan. So, or excuse me, to sign for that loan. So that what is often a resolution, it is can be a very simple document that you have your board sign. It can state that we, the board, authorize this nonprofit entity to pursue a New York Forward loan in the amount of this amount. We also authorize our, you could say, the CFO or the president or the ED, the executive director or president of our nonprofit to, we authorize and empower them to execute upon an agreement for the loan. And those two things need really ideally should be addressed in a letter from your board. And that just simply because there is no owner of the nonprofit, because there is no guarantor for the nonprofit, we really do need to make sure that the board does give authorization and fulfills its oversight duty in that way. I'll say that, I'll stop there for now on that. And I realize there may be more questions on this later, but hopefully that gets us started. Bank statements from February 2020 to date for the nonprofit organization. We want to see the, you have a bank we want to look at every February to current month. Maybe the last one would be for the end of October. And that is one of the ways that we understand the cash flow of the business. It's also how we just do a required verification that the business has not indeed received a PPP of greater than 50,000 or received an EIDL. So that is required. Lastly, a copy of the photo ID of the signer for the nonprofit. So those are the list of documents. I'll go to the next one, please. Thank you. Next slide. So the general steps are as followed here, and I'll tell you that all lenders are fairly uniform in this process. So that's how I wanted to present this. So one is, as Beverly had stated, you go through the steps with, I think, the avatar helper there is Lisa. She will guide you through the nyloanfund.com pre-application. But once you submit and you select a lender at the end, then your pre-application is sent to a lender. You enter our queue, and you will be contacted usually within a week, maybe within 2 weeks, depending on volume at that time. But you will be contacted by the lender. We'll reach out to you in the way that you indicated that you prefer, by email and phone. We will probably reach out to you by both. Your lender will verify your eligibility. And so we want to confirm some of those factors that you have to attest to regarding the PPP policy, EIDL, and also understanding did you have a surplus in 2019? What is the loan for? What's the amount that you're looking for? Is this the program the right fit? So we do a phone interaction to verify that information. And once we're able to determine that you're eligible to move forward, then we will send you, you will get a link to the full application and the document request list that I had just walked through. And so you will, I know you have just come through a pre-application process. You probably gathered that is still somewhat high level to the business. The full application does ask you to specify more details about your organization, contact information, date of establishment, the loan request, et cetera. And your lender will help you to complete your application and understand the required documents. As CDFIs, we are nonprofits ourselves. We are mission-driven organizations. And so we really want to ensure the success of your application. And so there is a lot of time that we will spend with you. There is interaction with our team who will take the time to inform you, to help you identify the correct documents there that are needed to help answer questions about the application. We really want to make sure that this fund is deployed to support the nonprofit community. So we do stand ready to advise you through this process versus to leave you on your own to complete it. Last step here is that from the time of a full application, required documents are submitted, underwriting and the closing process usually takes 1 to 2 weeks in total. We move quickly in underwriting, we move quickly in closing. And as Beverly had noted too, businesses need this money with urgency. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. All right, so I just want to note a few suggestions here for the for a successful loan application process. And I hope this is helpful to share with all the leadership of nonprofits on the call. Is be sure that the financial statements that you supply are complete and accurate. We realize that there may be cases where you do not have a 2019 990. If you have a 2018 990, then we would like to incorporate that into the process. But you may only have internally prepared financial statements. If they were audited, in some cases for nonprofits on the call, then we would absolutely take the audited financial statements. Otherwise, we will take what your management is able to prepare. Please do make sure that those financial statements are accurate, they're complete, they represent the full financials of your nonprofit. We respect the fact that there are also a wide variety of levels of establishment and capacity in the nonprofit sector. However, we do really require this to be a part of the process. Many nonprofits, no surprise to anyone, are often reliant on grants and donations or government contracts, let's say. But when we're talking about a loan has a repayment that includes principal and interest, and that means that nonprofits should have a surplus. That's nonprofits speak for profit, to be able to repay these loans. And True Fund, NDC, we're going to need to see that you have the ability to repay, and we use your past financials for that purpose. I'm going to come back to this point, so let me not steal my own smoke a few bullet points down. Next point here is to be prepared to answer questions about your organization's finances. So we will receive your financial statements, and very likely either from our business development officer who you will be working with, or with our, when you get into a underwriting process with our underwriters, our credit team. Questions may come back, and we would appreciate your insight on them. Some such questions can include, please describe your revenue streams. You might have private foundations, you might have donations, you might have had a gala, you might have earned revenue from after-school programs, or training or education programs, or other types of outreach that you do, and you charge services for those. So we really would like to understand the breakdown of that. You may also be able to share with us about seasonality. As Beverly had described, that the loan cap is also is determined in part by your expenses, your expenses over a 3-month period. So you might actually have a increase in summer when kids are off from school and they were zooming around this summer, or then in other circumstances they may have been in your day camps, or maybe your seasonality happens more constantly throughout the year and there is no rise or fall. We do need to understand that dynamic for your business so we can capture the right period of the year to be able to get you the most money that you can qualify for. We may also want to know about whether there's any unusual or one-time expenses in your past financials, so that we should be aware of it, because that could distort a little bit of your financials for 2019. If you had done some acquisition of equipment or did some leasehold improvements, and that's reflected in your statement of activities, we'd like to know that so that we could get a clearer picture of what really is the usual ongoing operations. Next one here is be prepared to explain the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on your organization. A part of our application is called a supplemental intake form that's particular to TrueFund. But all of our CDFIs will be asking you to at least explain how did the pandemic affect your organization. And it could have been the closure of programs, it could have been the delay of contracts, and we've been very well aware of the many ways that nonprofit community has been so greatly affected by this. Next is also be prepared to itemize the use of the loan and explain how it will help your organization through the pandemic. We would just like a line of sight and clarity into that. It does help us to break down those expenses. You heard that payroll can be included, whether working capital, maybe there's inventory related to some sort of products that you sell, or maybe it is coverage of overhead for a certain period of months. Those are all legitimate uses, but we do need you to itemize that. So be prepared to do so. And lastly here, is finally understand that loan amounts are ultimately determined by an assessment of your ability to support loan repayments. And that's based on your past cash flow. And I just want to highlight that for everyone here for a moment, that I actually think is a part of some smart design about this program, because to base a loan off of future projections is obviously going to be very difficult right now with so much uncertainty immediately surrounding us, and certainly in the next few months ahead. And so what we do, all lenders, as a part of the New York Forward Loan Fund, is we look backward. We look at the viability, the strength of the organization prior to the pandemic to determine the loan amount. The loan amount, yes, you've already heard that the cap is determined by either the lesser of $100,000 or the average of 3 months worth of expenses for nonprofits. That determines your cap. That's not your amount. That just is the most that we can lend to. The amount that you ultimately receive is what we believe you can finance, the amount you can support principal and interest payments below that cap. It may be that you could finance that cap. That's great that you get the most that's available to you, but we are also going to work with your financials to make sure that you can sustain this loan, because this is, unlike a grant, not money that you get to then put us to work fulfilling our missions. These are loans that need to be paid back over the course of time. And as you heard from Beverly, it's first 12 months is interest only, and then thereafter for the remaining 4-year period is principal and interest. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll slow it down here. I think that is my last slide. And I think the next slide is to sincerely thank you for the opportunity to present to you. I'm certainly available to answer questions. My last slide here is my contact information, and you may certainly reach out to me. All right, I'll step back at this point and hand my presentation back to the moderator, and I'll stand by to be of any additional explanation here.
Well, thank you, Brian. That was very informative, and thank you, Beverly. That was great. So now we're going to respond to your questions that you put into the chat feature. So there's two ways you can ask a question. One is through the chat, and then there's another feature called the Q&A, and we'll handle both. So with that, I'll turn it over to Morgan, and she'll start reading through the questions, and we'll provide you with the information you are seeking. Thanks, Morgan.
Great, thank you, Cindy. All right, we have a handful of questions. Our first question, they're wondering if we can get a copy of the slides presented, and they also want to know how long this loan application will be available to apply to.
Well, we definitely can send, I can send all the attendees a copy of the presentation. And then Beverly, did you want to answer the second question? Because I know you had discussed that previously today.
Time the funds will be made available. I do know that you know, again, it's first come, first serve. I don't know. We have not overcommitted the funds, so there is money still available. There's no sunset date for the program as yet, but I would just tell folks that if you're interested in applying or just utilizing the loan fund, you should try to do so as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
All right. The next question we have is regarding business location, and this particular person wrote that they operate via virtual offices with a P.O. box mailing address and a street address to one of their board members. Would that work?
Brian, do you want to answer that one?
That's a good question. I think we would need to know both. We would like to determine the actual physical location of the business, but the PO box is, if that is where your legal address of where you request documents or receive documents is set up, we would want to know that too. So, you know, in your formal application, you can include the PO box, but separately we'll want to know somewhere else where your physical location is.
Great. All right. And then we have a handful of questions regarding eligibility. If an organization has received an EIDL or PP loan or a grant. So if you guys would like to explain that one more time, we got a few questions regarding that.
Okay, sure. So if your organization received a paycheck protection loan of $50,000, then you can definitely participate in the program. If you receive a PPP greater than 50, then you cannot participate. Now, for the economic injury disaster loan, which is EIDL, if you receive the EIDL loan, then you're unable to participate in the program. But there is an EIDL grant, and the cap for that grant is relatively $10,000. So if you receive the EIDL grant, then yes, you can participate. If you receive the EIDL loan, then you're not eligible. Hope I was clear with that one.
And if I may just add to that too, because we realize that nonprofits, entities out there do have a few options that they've had to consider over time. Obviously, PPPs are no longer available, but imagine having been a nonprofit with the possibility of an EIDL, a PPP, and New York Forward all at the same time. Which one do I do? At this time, there's still the option to go for a EIDL loan up to December 21st, but the advance is no longer available and has not been available since July 11th. So, so for some of these situations, they may have already passed. Maybe some nonprofits are still trying to balance or compare which one is best, but the EIDL is available until December 21st. So we may still have some of these potential issues for a while.
Okay, great. We have a question asking if this will be recorded, and it is being recorded, and I believe it'll be posted on the New York State Council of the Arts website. All right, we also have a question. Okay. Are these loans available for businesses, not just non-for-profits?
Oh, yes, it is. We just tailored this presentation for nonprofits because the majority of folks attending were nonprofits. But yes, this loan is actually available to small businesses, of course, nonprofits, and also small landlords. I think there's the interest rate for small businesses is actually 3%. If you visit our, the website, you can actually go to the FAQ question or the program overview section, and it will talk extensively on the requirements and needed documentation for small businesses. I can, if you can, like I said, go to the website, or if you want to just email me, and we can just kind of talk about what's needed. And my email address is beverly.bob@esd.ny.gov.
Great. We have a question. What is the name of the second lender for nonprofits?
National Development Council, and that's NDC.
Okay.
Let me, if I just may add on to that too. So there are two lenders for nonprofits, and Beverly, I want to just emphasize one of the points that you've made, and it's actually one of the attestations too that a applicant for the New York Forward Loan must make, and that's that you cannot go after a New York Forward Loan with more than one entity. So while there are two lenders for nonprofits, that's not to indicate that you should go after both of those lenders. In other words, resubmit a pre-application, go back into the system, do one with TrueFund, do one with NDC. You are asked to attest that you have only applied for one New York Forward Loan. And as I had mentioned before, for as much as I am representing TrueFund here today, many of the, almost I think all of what I have said applies to either lender. So it is important to just emphasize you only apply with one lender, and what I presented today really is a almost identical process for both of us.
Great. And then I think we have two more, and they're more specific cases regarding eligibility. This one says, if the PPP loan was over $50K and became a grant, do we qualify?
I would, if it's over $50K, I would definitely say that you would not qualify, but I'll have to do a bit more research.
Yeah, one of the things I'll quickly say on that question, and maybe the implication here is that if the loan was forgiven, because PPP is a loan and then it can be forgiven, I think as we're all very familiar. So if it was forgiven, or if it was not, you still receive the PPP of a certain amount, and that's what is being monitored by this program. So whether the loan was forgiven or not, if you received a PPP of more than 50,000, then you would not be eligible to apply. I hope that answers the question. Beverly, would you agree?
Yes, thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Great. And then our last one, let's see. I think this one's directed towards Mara. This person would like to know if there is a contact for the New York State Council of the Arts regarding grant funding or minority operated art collectives.
Sure. Is this, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks so much. My internet went down, of course, during the midst of the webinar. So all of the information regarding grant opportunities are on our website. If you have a specific question about your discipline or business, you can identify what you believe to be the correct program director, and that's through the program page, and reach them either by phone or by email, and they'll be able to respond to you. I will say that currently we don't have we provide grants on an annual cycle for the most part, and that we will be posting our guidelines for our FY22 opportunities in the first quarter of 2021.
Great, thank you. And at that time, I don't think we have any more questions coming in.
Those were great questions. Thank you.
Okay, so someone did ask me privately, and for some reason I'm not able to respond, but they asked me if how will they access the presentation afterwards. And so it's going to be posted, the recording of the webinar will be posted to the NYSCA website. And then I can also email the PowerPoint presentation out to all the registrants. Well, there'll be two mechanisms that we get this information to you. So, okay, I do think that's it for questions. Mara, you had some closing comments?
Sure. And I did want to just underscore that we will be posting this on our website. I know you guys mentioned that. We also will be posting all the helpful email contacts as well. So thank you again for mentioning those. And I just wanted to thank everyone, Beverly, Cindy, Brian, and Morgan for today's presentation. And thank you for everyone who joined us today. This has been a really insightful and valuable conversation. NYSCA will continue to seek out meaningful content that will support our field, especially during this critical time of recovery. And we do welcome all suggestions. So you can reach me directly. My email is mara.manis@arts.ny.gov. That's actually on our website, right under my bio or next to it. And you can also continue to reach out to the NYSCA staff with any questions. And again, all of their contact information is on our website. Additionally, if you'd like to share any of your reopening news or your online digital programming initiatives for our website, please email public.affairs@arts.ny.gov. And in-person events also can be submitted to the NYSCA events calendar. We share an events calendar with I Love New York. I hope that today's session was enlightening, and as we prepare for the month ahead, I just wanted to express on behalf of all of NYSCA staff, all of our team at NYSCA, how incredibly humbled we are by the resiliency and creativity of an incredible sector, and we stand together with you on this path to recovery. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we wish you joy and good health for the upcoming holidays.
Okay, thank you, Mara, and thank you everyone for coming today, and thanks to the speakers and Morgan for your help with the questions. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.